Hi, I'm Julie Noblet, Actera's Energy and Climate Program Director. In today's Energy Bite, Sunnyvale resident Doug Kuntz will explain why you should consider switching to a heat pump water heater. Take it away, Doug.
Thank you, Julie. So if you're trying to figure out where would be a good place to start slashing your greenhouse gas emissions, I want to highlight an opportunity that you might not have been aware of and is a fairly easy change to make. So here's where I would suggest you might want to start. Just to put my remarks in context, we're talking right now about greenhouse gas emissions from buildings, which you might not have realized it, but here in California, that's actually the second largest source of emissions after transportation. And actually, at this point, is responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than electricity generation. So what's causing greenhouse gas emissions from a typical household? Here in California, actually, the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in a typical house is your water heater. By far, it's like half of your emissions. By comparison, if you look at, for example, a clothes dryer, that's just a little sliver at 3%. So your water heater is by far the most important area to make a change. If you're like me, I actually had both a gas dryer and a gas water heater. But for me, I had wiring for an electric dryer as well. I just wasn't using it. So if you happen to have a circuit that can power an electric dryer, and if you've got these kind of outlets in your garage, that says that you do, you might not realize it, but the electrical specs for powering a dryer are the same as for a typical water heater, 30 amps and 240 volts. So what you can do is actually take that unused circuit and use it to power an electric water heater. Specifically, you would want to get an electric heat pump water heater, and here's why. We're looking at two energy guide labels here for two different electric water heaters, same manufacturer, same size, 50 gallons. But the one on the left is a whole lot cheaper to run because it takes a lot less energy, and that is an electric heat pump water heater. So it's a newer technology and quite a bit more efficient than the old style, what were called electric resistance water heaters. They cost more up front. Mine was between $1,200 and $1,300, but they're so much cheaper to run that your payback time tends to be about 4 years. In order to get going on installing an electric heat pump water heater, there's a couple of folks that you need to help you if you're a typical homeowner like me. First of all, you need an electrician. So in my case, I got in touch with an electrician and said, hey, I've got this 30 amp 240 volt circuit that I'm not using, or I just said, hey, I've got this dryer circuit I'm not using, and I want to use it to power a water heater. And so the electrician was able to take that circuit and put the wiring in place so that I was ready to put in a water heater. And then the second thing you need is a plumber who's familiar with installing electric heat pump water heaters. And it can actually be very straightforward to find these guys. In my case, I bought my electric heat pump water heater at Lowe's, and so when I was looking into the water heater, I arranged for installation, and the installer that they had was somebody who was already trained on how to put one in. One thing that you'll find is can lower your stress level is if they offer a pre-installation readiness assessment. So in my case, I was able to have the plumber come out to my house and look at the spot where it was going to go in and make sure that everything was ready to go before I paid for the water heater. So before I committed to buying, I knew that it was going to work. Just talking about the results so far. This is my February PG&E bill, and one thing you'll notice is that my February 2018 bill on the right is lower than my February 2017 bill all the way at the left. And that's even though I've actually been increasing my electricity usage. So in December, I started charging a second electric vehicle, but even so, my overall bill is down. And that's not even showing our savings on our credit card bill from gasoline. This is just looking at my utility bill. Second thing to note is that in June, we put in, right at the end of June, we put in the electric heat pump water heater, and you see that immediately our gas use went almost to nothing. And then in August, September, and October, our gas use was actually zero. And we only started using gas again once we got into the winter heating season. We took out a couple other things, but the biggest driver of that change was the water heater. So the water heater is a great place to start. There's certainly a lot more that I'd suggest you do to cut your greenhouse gas emissions afterwards, but it's a high impact change and one that's relatively straightforward to make. It's relatively cheap. For example, if you're trading off between that and a car, the heat pump water heater is fits better within most folks' budgets and has minimal lifestyle impact. That being said, electric vehicles are great. You might want to look at them next. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. That was an excellent overview. Are you a Sunnyvale resident and would like to learn more about your home energy costs? Get a free online energy audit at hea.com/sunny. See you next time.